Welcome everybody to AMS Weatherband's latest webinar, From Climate Science to Kindergarten, with Dian Seidel and Keith Seitter. Before we begin, I would like to, of course, address some of the guidelines for our audience today. If you have any questions during the webinar, like I mentioned on the chat earlier, please put them in the Q&A option on the bottom of your screen. We're going to put all of the questions on there, so it's easy for Keith and Dian to sort through them and to address questions as they do pop up, and not have to wade through all the chats. And also, we will have some specific time for questions near the end of our presentation, or some of the questions might get addressed as they come up, depending upon the flow of our webinar. Now, I would like to introduce today's moderator. Keith, thank you for joining us. Keith has served as AMS Executive Director for 17 years, stepping down from that position in January 2022. He is now a Senior Policy Fellow with the AMS Policy Program and a Distinguished Visiting Lecturer at College of the Holy Cross. With that being said, Keith, I give you the floor.
Great. Thanks, Gideon. Well, it's great to have all of you join us today, and I am truly thrilled to have an opportunity to sit down and chat with Dian. We've known each other for many, many years, and it's great to have an opportunity to do this and to share some of the things that she has done. For those of you who don't know, Dian Seidel is a distinguished climate scientist who spent 30 years with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which NOAA, and retired from that position a few years ago and decided to take on some new challenges. And that's really the objective of our discussion tonight, is to talk about some of her experiences and this wonderful book that she wrote, Kindergarten at 60. But before we actually get into that, Dian, perhaps you can take just a few minutes to talk about your scientific career and kind of set the stage for the kind of background that you brought to this later adventure in your life.
Sure. Thanks, Keith. Thanks so much for doing this, and thanks to Gideon and to Claudia Gorski for arranging this. It's really an honor to be here, and thanks to all of you out in webinar land for joining us today. Yeah, thanks, Keith. In terms of my scientific background, I got involved in climate science, climate research before the term climate science was really a thing. We were kind of called climatologists when I got started in this field in, I guess, the early 1990s. I started to work at NOAA in a programmatic position, and then went back to school, got my PhD at the University of Maryland under NOAA sponsorship, and that turned into to a career at NOAA doing work in the field of detection of climate trends, particularly in the upper air. My work focused a lot on observational evidence for climate change, and the particular focus on using radio sonde observations, weather balloon observations, to look for changes in atmospheric temperature and humidity from the surface up through the stratosphere. And yeah, in 2016, I retired on Leap Day, which I thought was very symbolic. I made the leap from science to my next adventures, and I guess that's what eventually turned into the book that we're talking about tonight, Kindergarten at 60.
That's great. Well, and so shortly after you retired, you and your husband started teaching English as a second language. There in the area where you live. Can you tell us a little bit about the process that led you to taking that on as kind of something to do after your scientific career?
Sure. Yeah. Long ago, in the mid 1980s, I think, briefly, I volunteered at a local church in DC, teaching people who wanted to get their GED, their high school equivalency exam, and that was very challenging, but also very rewarding. My stint doing that didn't last very long. Work kind of got in the way, and then I got married, and then I had a child, and I didn't do that work for a long time. But I always had in the back of my mind how how rewarding that was. And although it was a GED program, really what the people were looking for was improving their English so that they could pass the GED. Many of the students were from Central America. And so I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to continue doing that. And when I did retire, I found a place called Washington English Center, which is a school in DC that specifically has as its mission helping immigrants to the DC area get the language skills that they need to succeed. And so I started volunteering there. The first term was hard, but I had a good co-teacher who helped me kind of figure out how to plan lessons and how to engage with people. And I just really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it so much that they talked about it a lot at home. And Steve, my husband, said, well, I can do this too. He actually, in addition to other work that he did, he actually has a teaching degree. He was briefly a public school teacher. So he was better equipped than I was to do that. So we both became volunteers at Washington English Center. And it's a wonderful school, and we meet so many wonderful, highly motivated people with such interesting backstories. So it's very, very fun, in addition to feeling like a worthwhile way to spend time. And then after a little while, we had this kind of itch that a lot of retirees have to travel, but not like to travel, a few weeks in a tour, going from place to place to place. We wanted to kind of go someplace and live there. Something that I hadn't done during I never took a sabbatical or did anything like that, the way some of our colleagues have and have had great experiences. So I always wanted to do that. So we thought we could have like a sabbatical, but teaching English. And that was our goal, to go abroad and teach English to adults, like we do in Washington. That's not how it worked out, but that was our goal.
Well, take us through that story then of how it did work out, and how it ended up that you landed in Thailand and landed in a kindergarten classroom instead of teaching adults as you had originally planned.
Yeah, so long story short, teaching kindergarten in Thailand was our only choice, which was very surprising, actually, because as I said, we had this experience, several years experience teaching in DC. Steve has a master's of education. We've also both got certifications through Cambridge University to teach English to speakers of other languages. So we were highly qualified as these things go. And our resumes were, we were told looked great, but what we didn't know, but we figured out after not too long, was that we had one big disqualifying factor for most jobs, which was that we were ancient in comparison to most of the people who go abroad to teach English as Americans. In some countries, mandatory retirement age is in the 50s or 60, 65. They weren't going to hire somebody who was close to or over those ages, couldn't get work visas. And in other places, just the norm, if you were hiring a teacher from abroad, was to hire someone, out of school, fresh out of school, doing a gap year, or maybe a young teacher who was doing kind of a sabbatical thing abroad, but, looking for much younger people than we were. So you'll have to read the book for the details, but Thailand, it turned out to be the only place where we could finagle a job. It was not at all where I wanted to go because I don't like tropical weather. And Thailand is not far from the equator. So, but we went. We wanted to go somewhere, and they'd have us, so we went.
So, so you land in a school. You're both teaching kindergarten. Did you find that your background as a scientist helped you, or are the skill sets so terrifically different that it was like starting from scratch?
I think there was one skill that I learned over the course of a scientific career that was helpful, and that was kind of the herding cat skill. When you're collaborating with people, say you're on a paper or something like that, and everybody's kind of got their own perspective and their own priorities and their own schedule, and getting everybody on the same page, literally if you're writing a paper, but figuratively, it can be hard, and sometimes beyond your capability. That's what kindergarten's like, but of course, using rationality doesn't always, not everybody has the same motivations. Finishing the project isn't necessarily important for a 5-year-old, except I should pause here to say that in Thailand, people send their kids to kindergarten at age 2.5. So what we think of as kindergarten is more like preschool, or what they think of as kindergarten is more like what we think of as preschool. And classroom management, which is what educators call the herding cats phenomenon, was definitely not my strong suit. I had kids running off in all directions all the time, and it took quite a while to get that under control. But
we're going to have, I'm going to ask you to do a very short reading from your book in just a minute. But before we do that, can you maybe set the stage a little bit in terms of how many students you had in a class, kind of what that structure was like a little bit, because
Sure.
I think that might help us kind of set the stage for what you read for us.
Yes, thanks. So the school that we were in was special in a number of ways. First of all, it was a private school. And secondly, we were teaching in kind of a school within a school, which was fairly new. The school had been newly established just about 1.5 years before we arrived. And we were hired really for our accents. The school within a school was an English immersion program starting in kindergarten. And the school wanted people with, whose mother tongue was English, and particularly wanted American English accents in the teachers. And so we had a small class. By the time we left, it was 14 students, and there were 4 teachers responsible for 14 students. Steve and I were job sharing, so we counted as one job, but we were really 2 people in the classroom. So there were us 2, a head teacher and another teacher who had been there a while. So you think, wouldn't you, Keith, 14-4 student teacher ratio, that what could be difficult?
What could go wrong, right?
Same thing too, but honestly, it was really hard, and it was nonstop. We had to be at school before school to welcome the kids when they were dropped off at the gate, and then stay late in the afternoon. So it was a long. By the end of the day, you're a new grandfather, so
Yes.
little children can be exhausting, and 14 of them can be very exhausting. Even though I can't really say it was a hardship posting, and it would have been much different if we had been placed in a Thai public school with bigger classes and fewer teachers for a different student-teacher ratio, But as I said, our choices were very, very limited. Schools didn't jump up and down to take us.
Well, I want to give you a chance to give us all just a kind of a snapshot of the book. I will say, and I will say this multiple times, the book is really wonderful. The way you have written it is so engaging. And I like for everybody to sort of at least have a taste of that. So can you give us just a short burst of what people have in store for them if they read this book?
Absolutely. So thanks for reading, Keith. I really appreciate that. And any of the rest of you who are listening in, thank you for reading as well. The book is written in short vignettes. There's 52 chapters of short stories. So I'll set the stage for this story, which I chose because it has a meteorological theme to it. So here's what's going on at school. So it seemed like every Friday at school, it was some special event. It was either a holiday that we were celebrating, or maybe it was sports day at school, or maybe it was a field trip to the museum, or something special was happening. And on those special Fridays, parents and grandparents and siblings would be invited to school. And so the school was kind of on show. And so it was always a big extravaganza and a lot of stuff to prepare. So the story that I want to read to you is about Arts Day at school. And Arts Day involved singing and dancing and finger painting with the parents, and an art show of all the different kindergarten art projects. And I thought the thing that was missing from Arts Day was theater. And so very stupidly, I decided to arrange a theatrical production for the kids. And so this chapter that I'm going to read an excerpt from is entitled Role Playing, and it's about my theatrical adventure. I am not a drama teacher. I have never written, produced, directed, or even had a bit part in a play, but I was a meteorologist. We've been studying weather words in class, though it's been a challenge to teach about rain and snow here in central Thailand's dry season. Since we arrived in Pathum Thani, that's the province where we were teaching, there has been no measurable precipitation of any kind, and the rainy season is months away. Actual atmospheric conditions notwithstanding, and with faith in the magic of the theater, I've scripted a one-act play entitled A Rainy Day, with 3 short scenes and roles for all the children. Scene 1, We Need Rain. I need Pepper, Golf, and Ivy on stage, I announce. These children have the most challenging speaking parts, 4 lines each. If they can manage scene 1, we'll be in good shape for the rest of the play. The kids hop up the wooden steps to the platform on the playground. I point out their marks on the stage, bits of masking tape with their names in block lettering. With a grand sweep of my arms, I show where our audience will be and, in what I imagine to be a theatrical voice, say, on stage, we are actors. As actors, we must look at our audience and use our best outdoor voices. Pepper, Golf, and Ivy all nod in earnest agreement. I don't doubt the importance of being earnest, but with 4-year-olds, it is no guarantee of success. And this first rehearsal is a disaster. Nobody's voice goes above a whisper, and all 3 actors need reminders of their lines, even Golf, the class brainiac. Slowly, with continual prompts, they manage to speak the dialogue that reveals the dramatic tension that I so carefully constructed. The farmer's crops need water. The child yearns to play in puddles. The city dweller pleads for cleaner, cooler air. But then Champu, a theatrical prodigy at age 2, floats perfectly cloud-like onto the stage, and the threesome nails the Greek chorus. Little cloud, we need rain. Please, may we have some rain? You'll have to read the rest of the chapter to figure out what happens in Acts 2 and 3 and whether anybody breaks a leg. Nobody broke a leg.
That's great. The way you set that up in the book is just lovely. It really gives, I think, the reader a sense of one, how much you love what you're doing with these young people, and also the kind of sense of of specialness that is happening within that classroom. So it really is quite lovely. You also have some photos to share with us, but before that, you talk about the not having had rain. I mean, you're going to this place as a climate scientist. I'm sure you had looked at a lot of what the climate of the area is and what to expect. Were you able to turn off the scientist part of your brain in the process of doing this, or were you always kind of also kind of thinking, well, I could probably do some cool research here?
Good question. Yeah, just to respond to your remark about the kids, I kind of made it sound earlier like the kids were really hard to deal with, but they also were really adorable and really stole your heart. I mean, you couldn't, I couldn't help but be charmed and fall in love with these children. So I hope that comes through. In terms of the climate science in Thailand, I'll admit I have not felt compelled to do research in the area that I used to do research in since retiring. I actually, I know some people, and Keith, you and I know many people like this, couldn't dream of leaving aside work that they've devoted their careers to, and really never do fully retire from that. And you're a little like that too, I think, Keith. But I felt when I retired that I had done enough, that there was sort of an arc to my research career, and I felt like it had come to a logical, and so I didn't feel the need to gather data or be in touch with the Thai Meteorological Service, and I'm not sure that I'm getting that title right. But I did look at observations while I was there, not only of weather, daily weather, but also of air quality, because air quality is a serious problem in Thailand. And I did also research the climate of Thailand before going, and we chose to go when we went during the dry season, based on that work. I didn't really think we'd have a good time if we went during the really rainy season, where just getting around would be difficult. And then so they have a warm season, a cool season, a hot season, and a rainy season. But the cool season isn't cool. It's pretty hot, and then the very hot season. So we went during the cool season, and the choice was based on a bit of research. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Well, would this be a good time from your point of view to kind of run through some of the pictures that you have here?
I'd be delighted to.
Okay,
and,
terrific.
Keith, though, I'm going to ask you to tell me if I'm chatting on and on for too long with you. If you think when I show pictures in a photo album, I like to let other people turn the pages, but we can't do that here. But you can verbally tell me enough. Okay.
And while you're doing that, we do want to have folks ask questions of you, and so as you're going through those photos, certainly any of you in the audience that would like to pose some questions for Diane, I could chat with her for another 2 hours, but I want to have time for the rest of you to have an opportunity to do that. So feel free to put some questions in the Q&A section as we're working through this, and I'll try to get through as many of those as we can before we lose the hour.
Great. So Keith, can you see now these?
Yes, I can. This looks great.
So this isn't a photo, obviously, it's a hand-drawn map of Thailand, and I just put this here to show you where we were. The equator is below this image, so Thailand is about, Bangkok's about 13 degrees north, I think, latitude here in kind of Southeast Asia. We initially arrived in Thailand here in the north in Chiang Mai, and you'll see one photograph from there. But that was for our orientation. We spent a week there. But then we were placed in a school in Pathum Thani, which is here in central Thailand, actually not far from the capital Bangkok, on the Chao Phraya River, which is one of the main river arteries through the country. So just gets us located. Oops. Oh, how do I advance? Oh, there we go. So this picture is meant to explain a point that I made earlier. So this illustrates one of the chapters in the book called 23 and We. 23 and We refers to our orientation group, these people. So these are the English teachers in Chiang Mai, Farangs. That's the Thai word for foreigner. So these are the foreigner English teachers doing a little field trip to a Thai rice farm. So there's 25 teachers. These two gentlemen are the rice farmers, sensibly dressed in hats and long sleeves. The other two people sensibly dressed in hats and long sleeve are Steve and me there in the center. And then the other 23 with we are our colleagues from Australia, Canada, and the US, all getting ready to go off to be teachers in Thailand. And you can see that their median age is probably about 23, and they just have a whole different attitude toward being out in the sun than we did. These are the teachers from our school, not all the teachers from the school. As I told you, we were a school within a school. So this is the larger school faculty. The ones who lived in the apartment building that we were living in, right across the alleyway from the school building. And you can see that these people too are all a generation at least younger than Steve and me. So the teachers are all either from Thailand or from the Philippines. There's a lot of Filipino teachers in Thailand, and these were our colleagues. This picture shows our first day at school. We arrived in October 2019 into this school that I called Patumtani Prep. That's not the name of the school actually, but that's what I call it in the book. And here we are in our school uniforms, these orange shirts that we were given. We each got 2 shirts that we wore pretty much every single day for 5 months. By the end of the 5 months, they didn't look orange anymore. And we were very happy to leave them in Thailand when we came home. Here's a picture. I show this because you can see some of the children, but you can also see the classroom. It's a pretty well-equipped classroom. You see a lot of English in the background. It's an English immersion school, as I mentioned. And here's me reading a story to some of the children around the circular table that we did everything at. I tell you, just sitting down in those little kindergarten chairs all day long is hardship in itself for someone my age. This is the play. This is from the story that I just read, role playing. And here you can see all the characters, well, many of the characters on stage. These were the 3 who had the major roles. This is the farmer, the boy who wants to jump in puddles, and the city dweller who's looking for rain to clear out the air in the city. And then we bring in the meteorological elements. There's thunder and lightning here, and you can see their little thunderbolts on their shirts. Here's the sun, required to form the rainbow that will be the star of the show at the end. And here's our little cumulonimbus cloud, Champu. And she was the most adorable child you'd ever want to meet, and also a very clever little girl. So she got the starring role. Here's a photo from Loi Krathong, which is a Thai holiday. I put this picture in here because it's a November holiday. It's the Thai holiday celebrating the full moon that comes in November. So it's coming up this year in, I think the 27th is the full moon. It's the time where you cast off bad karma, basically, into the rivers and bodies of water by floating these krathongs, these baskets full of flowers, floating them down the river. It's really quite a beautiful celebration. And this was our school celebration where we weren't near a body of water, a natural body of water. So we used an inflatable pool to cast off our bad karma, but it still was great. It was a great day. Another picture from another holiday celebration. I told you there were always celebrations at school. So Loikrathon was one November celebration, but we also celebrated Thanksgiving since Steve and I were there. And this is a picture of us making our Thai pumpkin pies. So we took a Thai pumpkin and roasted it and beat it up. And here the kids were all making pumpkin pies. And here's Champu again, who was the little cumulonimbus cloud that you saw a moment ago. And here are the kids, some of the kids doing some more normal everyday things that you would see in a kindergarten anywhere around the world, playing Legos. This was when I lost control of the class, I would send the kids to the Legos, and then everybody was fully engaged, and chaos was avoided. As I said, most of the people we encountered were either, under age 5 or in their 20s, our colleagues. These were the only people that we got to know who were close to our age. This lady was the head of our school. In the book, she's called Dr. Pat. And this is her husband, who was a retired Army general. This was a picture from an international fireworks display that they took us to see in Pattaya, which is on a resort town on the Gulf of Thailand. So these were our only friends for 6 months who were anywhere near our generation. This picture's just a picture of a poster, the poster showing the Thai alphabet. People ask me whether I learned the Thai language. I did my best to prepare in advance to study Thai. We took lessons with one of the other teachers at school. We did an exchange, English for Thai, Thai for English. But I show you this to show you how difficult the alphabet is to learn. 44 letters, many of them look awfully like other letters. This just overwhelmed me, and I was a complete illiterate in Thailand. I never learned. I couldn't write my name. I couldn't read a single sign, and that felt not so good. But I did learn some basic phrases and some sort of general, how to ask for things and how to understand money and things like that. But never really got at all fluent in Thai. Finally, this picture shows Steve and me in face masks. This was in January of 2020. It was the first time in my life I had ever worn a face mask, and it wasn't for COVID. It was because the air pollution was bad. But the air pollution was bad every day. This was just exceedingly bad. So the parents of the students brought in face masks for us to wear and for the children to wear as well on that day. And actually, you can see in the background the sky. It's basically white. There's so much particulate in the sky, in the air. And just to finish off the show, this is an image of the book cover, available wherever you get books, local bookstores, online, wherever, and also in audiobook form if you're an audiobook reader, as I am. So I'll stop sharing there.
That was great. Yeah. And it does give a nice sense. Having read the book, you do such a nice job of sort of creating a mind's image of what the school was like, what the children were like, but it is wonderful to actually see the pictures of them and be able to sort of compare that with what I was imagining things looked like. I've got a couple of other questions, and then hopefully we'll have some from the audience as well. But you showed a picture of the fireworks festival. I know you did some work in research on fireworks. Can you tell me a little bit about the connection maybe between some of the work you did for air quality with 4th of July fireworks here in the US versus what you were seeing in Thailand?
Sure. So I worked at the Air Resources Lab of NOAA, which is an air quality lab primarily. years and years ago, it had a strong climate focus. Then it was split into two labs, and the remaining climate work was relatively small. That was what I was involved in. But most of our laboratory very much focused on air pollution, dispersion, and transport and modeling. So I was surrounded by air quality people all the time. One summer, I had a high school student, actually it was 2 summers in a row. She came back both summers. I had a high school student who wanted to, do a research project. And I've always been a non-fan of fireworks. I'm like one of those few people who don't enjoy fireworks for a number of reasons. But I thought, one of the reasons is because really you can see how schmutzig, how dirty the air gets, as the display goes on. And so I thought, I said to Abigail Birnbaum, who's now getting ready to receive her PhD in, I think it's a hydrological engineering, so it's a related field to our yep. field. In any case, so Abby did this study with me on looking at air pollution effects from 4th of July fireworks. And what we found was that there's a marked increase in the amount of particulate matter in the atmosphere in the hours from about 8 p.m. On 4th of July through midnight and beyond. So that little bit of work, which was, as I said, summer project with a high school student, was probably the study of mine that got the most media attention ever. Not my main focus, but every 4th of July, it was published, I think, in 2015 or so, I forget, but a while back, but they still get calls on 4th of July. So when we went to Thailand and our school director said, we'd like to take you guys for a weekend at the beach. We said, oh, how nice. I mean, I love the beach. I love to swim. And that comes through in the book as well. I mean, the water is a big part of my life. It was great. We'd love to go to the beach with you. So we get to the beach and we're sitting there at dinner right at the shore at the Gulf of Thailand, as you saw in the picture. And they tell us kind of cryptically that tonight is the International Fireworks competition where Thailand is competing against all these other countries, and there's not going to be just one big fireworks display, but they're just going to keep going all night long. And I'm thinking, oh no. But actually they were fairly far away. It wasn't that noisy. There wasn't that much wind, so I don't think we got too much of the downwind effect. It was kind of pretty. And it actually, when you're with people whose language, where you don't really have fluency in their language or they in yours, having something to look at in the background and to admire jointly is actually very entertaining. So it worked out okay.
Well, I'm going to switch to some questions we're getting from some of the folks who were watching the webinar. One came in as an anonymous question, but it said, will you go back to Thailand, or would you want to go someplace new? I think meaning in the same kind of experience.
Yeah, great question. Thanks. So we went for 5 months to Thailand, and it was leaving home for that amount of time was hard in a couple of ways. One was my mother, who at the time was 95. She's now almost 100, and I would not at this juncture go for such a long time and leave her back home. Nor would I leave our 17-year-old cat at home for 5 months. I mean, she stayed with another family, but I think, but what we have done, the experience of teaching abroad was great. The experience of teaching kindergarten was less great. But we still have aspirations to teach older people. And we did go to Italy, to Sicily, and taught middle school, conversational English in middle school for a shorter period of time last winter. So that kind of trip, definitely would do again. It's a really nice way to be part of a community when there are programs set up specifically for these volunteer teaching stints. It's a lot easier to arrange than the teaching abroad in Thailand was. and to be honest, I don't think we could go abroad and work for pay at this age. I mean, that was kind of a lesson that I learned. The opportunities are unless you're willing to go for a longer period. You want to join Peace Corps or something like that and go for 27 months. That's an option, or some other longer term programs, but you really have to commit to going for a while. But yeah. Yeah, it's a great way to be part of a community and to engage with young people in a fun way.
Great. We've got a question from Rick Rosen, who says, can you tell us about any trips you took to Bangkok and or visits to some of the other cultural experiences in Thailand?
Yep. So Bangkok is on, if you're traveling to Thailand, you will go to Bangkok, and there are wonderful things to see there. And we did go frequently. I'll be honest with you, the thing that we mostly went to Bangkok for was the breakfast buffet in the hotels because we didn't have a kitchen. We were eating lunch with the children that we prepared with the children. So imagine that. And breakfast was the only equipment we had in our apartment was basically a toaster. So we had toast. So we would stock up on calories at these hotel buffets in Bangkok, which are fantastic. Although I don't know if those buffets survived the pandemic because, it's a lot of, so I don't know about that. But anyhow, that's the primo thing to do in Bangkok, is go to the buffet at the hotel. There's also wonderful cultural sites. And I guess I'll tell you about one place that we enjoyed. It's it's not the top listing of things, but a place called Museum Siam. It's kind of like the Museum of American History in Washington, the way it explains American culture, with everything from, the red shoes from Wizard of Oz to, I don't know, Prince's guitar, cultural stuff. So you can learn a lot about Thai culture at this wonderful museum. And I definitely recommend that if you're a visitor to Thailand, because it puts things into context in a way that is very accessible. The culture is hard to understand, partly because the language is difficult for Westerners, but also people are really friendly, but also eager to please in a way that makes communication is different than in a Western society. So this museum is a great place to go. I also really recommend taking the ferries on the river as a way to get around, because just because it's cool. You see the sights from the waterfront, and it's really cool.
Oh, that's great.
Rick, are you planning a trip? If you do, bon voyage.
That's great. We have another anonymous question, which actually gets to something that I'm glad to bring up in this way, but definitely we want to talk about before we run out of time here. And that is, the question is, which helped you as a book author more, your scientific training or being a teacher, or neither or both? And I do want to have a chance for you to talk a little bit about the process of writing this kind of a book, which is so dramatically different than the kind of writing all of us do as scientists.
Yeah, so I would say I was quite ill prepared to write this book based on my earlier writing experience. I thought I knew how to write. I thought I could put sentences and paragraphs together in a coherent way. And I could, but I realized, okay, so let me just back up a few steps. We come home from Thailand on March 3rd, 2020. March 13th, 2020, the whole world goes into pandemic shutdown. While we were away, I mentioned my mom. I sent these emails home. The time difference was 12 hours. She's hard of hearing, so telephone calls weren't going to be a good way to communicate. But we did so by email with photos attached. And I got into telling these stories by email, which, just to keep my own sanity, I tried to make lighthearted, kind of make bring out the funnier aspects of the challenges that we face. And people started to really, I sent them not just to my mother, but to other people as well. And people started to say, wow, can't wait for your next missive from Thailand. They're so amazing. They feel like I'm right there. And then when we came home and the missives weren't coming anymore, somebody said, well, you should write a book. I thought, well, I should write a book because I have nothing else to do, because all the other things that I do with my life are shut down. So I took some courses through a writing center here in Maryland, in Bethesda, called the Writers Center. And I learned that I really didn't have a clue how to write. I didn't have a clue how to tell a story. Because when we write scientific papers, it's like, just the facts, ma'am,
Yeah.
Tell the story, give all the facts so that the work is reproducible, so someone can check you out and do it in a nice linear fashion as clearly as you can be. That is absolutely the wrong way to engage a reader of a memoir or of a novel. You don't want to put all the facts there. You want to put only the interesting things there. And you don't necessarily want to do it in a linear way. And you've got to bring in dialogue, and you have to create characters and all that stuff I had never done before. But I had plenty of time to learn. And I started not only to take workshops, but also I joined a couple of critique groups. That's an interesting experience. I'm still involved with those. I've made some nice friends in the writing community, critiquing each other's work. And I got some professional help from editors as well. So not very much actually prepared me to write. And I'll have to say that writing about the experience that I had in Thailand was almost more rewarding than the experience itself. It was certainly less physically challenging, but also, I felt I was in control of that experience, of the writing experience, in a way that I wasn't controlled of the lived experience. So I understand now why people write memoir. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, you do such a great job. The thing that caught my eye when I was reading the book is how in literally just a few words, you gave a sense of the person that you were describing. And sometimes it was just a little bit about what they were wearing or the way they were standing or something. But I always had a sense that I could visualize what you were talking about, even though you didn't use very many words to describe it. And that just, to me, feels like such a gift that I think, all your training aside, somewhere that was hidden down inside you that was exposed through those experiences somehow. So I can't say enough good things about this book. It was such a fun read. But I want to go to a couple other questions. Somebody, Carl Mears, asked if you have a favorite dish that's not common in the U.S.
So I know Carl has lived in Thailand himself, so I'm guessing he has his own favorite dish. Stuff, Thai food that's not available in the U.S. There's a dish called a hoi tad, which I had only a couple of times. It's kind of like an omelet, but made with oysters, kind of in cooked in oil. I don't know. There was something, and actually, I tried it for the first time at that fireworks display. The fireworks dinner was a buffet dinner, and that's where I tried a lot of things that I hadn't experienced before. And hoi tad was something that I don't know that I've ever seen it on a Thai menu in this country, but that was one dish that I really enjoyed. The thing that I'm not sure how available it is here, but it became a staple food for both me and my husband was mango smoothies. As I said, the weather's really hot, and you can't drink tap water. You have to drink bottled water there. And so, if you're going to buy a drink anyhow, why not get a mango smoothie? Because they are delicious, and they're like available both from street vendors and in restaurants and, just everywhere. And they were just wonderful. Thailand's a major producer of mangoes, and we had mangoes for breakfast every day, mango smoothies whenever we went out. And I would say that's my absolute favorite Thai food.
That's great. Another question is from John Lanzant. And he says, were there any challenges due to cultural differences? And then parenthetically says, I'll bet the food was great.
Yeah, so I mean, the big, hi John. So the cultural differences stemming from language were challenging, but I've already talked a little bit about that, so I won't go there. The thing that I learned both from reading before leaving and also in our orientation, which I found to be quite true, was the difference between Thai culture as a collectivist culture and Western culture as an individualist culture. And just briefly, I mean, I don't claim to be a sociologist or anything like that, but I think it's the case that in Thailand and in some other Asian societies as well, the important thing is that the group be happy and that there not be dissension and disharmony in the group. Whereas for Westerners, the important thing is that, an individual strive and achieve and assert themselves and be present and feel good about themselves. So when a problem arises, a Westerner tends to want to address the problem and deal with it and move on. A Thai person would rather not confront any source of unhappiness or disharmony is not dealt with very well. And in the schoolroom where I had ideas about how we could improve things. And we were told before we ever got to the school, this is not your job. The school is run the way it's run. You should zip it if you think that there are better ways to run it. And that for me was very, very hard. Zipping it was hard, but also just coping with problems that I thought could be fixed if only we could talk about them. But I would say that's kind of the nugget of difficulties with cultural things. But I learned to just chill and realize I'm not in control here, and this is not my country or my school. Just go with the flow.
Well, I need to pass on. John added a comment there asking if you taught the children to homogenize the radio sound data, which I'm guessing the answer is no. But I couldn't resist including that. But on a more serious question, a question from someone who did not identify themselves is what did you miss most from the U.S. And what do you miss most in terms of from your life in Thailand?
I think what I missed the most was kind of just talking with people that my own, who I could relate to, who had a shared background, generational background, shared cultural background. With Thai people, I never kind of knew what could be assumed that they would. First, there were language issues, even among people whose English was pretty good. There was always a language issue, but also I just didn't know what touchstones we had in common. And then of course for the much younger people, there were just time touchstones that we didn't have that much in common. So I missed that, just being able to relate to people in an easy way, just because we shared backgrounds. So that was one thing. What do I miss about Thailand? It was a great experience. I learned a lot. And I don't regret at all having done that, but I really don't miss it. And I mean, I'd be curious to go back and meet some of the kids again for sure, but I don't know if that can ever happen,
Yeah.
given how young they were when we knew them.
Well, and Cynthia Decker asked if you were still in touch with anyone from there.
Mm-hmm. The only people, Cynthia, hi. The only people that we're in touch with are the school director and her husband. The kids, as I said, were quite young, too young for email addresses, and so it's not like, if we had older students, we could stay in touch with them, but these were really children were just too young. So we're in touch with the school people, but that's it.
And we've got just a couple minutes left, but Alan Robach asked you how you found your publisher.
Hi, Alan. My thesis advisor from the University of Maryland, who isn't at Maryland anymore, at Rutgers. I found my publisher. I was super, super lucky to find a publisher. I tried, once I had a manuscript ready, I tried multiple paths toward publication. I don't want to spend a long time, but the whole story of finding a book publisher is another whole story. I tried to get a literary agent to sell the book to a major publisher. And at the same time, I pursued small presses, and I was also considering hybrid presses as a final option, self-publishing. A small press picked up the book quite quickly, actually. I was so lucky. I mean, I think it was luck because, there's plenty of great books out there that don't get picked up, but my publisher is a unique publisher. It's called Apprentice House Press. They're at Loyola University, Maryland. And the press is run by students who take courses in publishing under the supervision of a single professor, Kevin Addix, who has made this small press into quite a nice little enterprise. It's been in existence for 15 years or more, and they publish a couple dozen books a year. It was a wonderful experience being an Apprentice House author, and I found out about the press through an editor who I had worked with on the manuscript, and said, this might be a good match. The students in the courses select the manuscripts that they want to actually publish. So I was just delighted that a bunch of college undergraduates in a course on book publishing found my story, kindergarten at 60, to be a compelling story, even to someone their age. So it was a dream. It was a dream come true, really, to be published.
That's great. That's terrific. And we'll just take one more question because we're almost out of time here. But Rick Yang asked if every kindergarten in Thailand has an English class.
Rick, hi. I don't know. I know that in most schools, the English teacher is not all day long, the way we were all day long teachers. It's someone that the students come, they have their English hour or half hour, whatever it is. There's an English class during the day, and that teacher sees, all kinds of different kids over the course of the day. I don't know whether they start that at kindergarten or not. I'm kind of guessing not, particularly, in the outskirts where the resources are probably not there. I'm guessing too that in many places the English teachers are not native speakers, maybe Thai people who may not have had the opportunity to speak English in an English speaking country. So there's all kinds of needs for English teachers. If you're interested in teaching English in Thailand, the opportunities are there because they definitely need more teachers.
Well, we will close this out now with that. Thank you, Diane, for sharing your experiences with us for this past hour, but also for sharing them through this book so that all of us can learn more about what you've done. I'm just in awe of the bravery that you experienced, that you exhibited to do this, and all the things that you learned that come through in this wonderful book, and are making me think a little bit more about how I might be a little more courageous in my retirement and try some things that I haven't done. So thank you for that.
I want to say thank you to you all for participating. Keith, this has been such a fun conversation. Yeah. I'm going to say thank you in Thai, okay? and then I'll say goodbye in Thai. So thank you is Khop Kun Ka, and I don't know if the pronunciation is correct, if the tonalities are correct. So Khop Kun Ka is thank you, and then we can all say Sawatdee Ka. If you're a woman, if you're a man, Sawatdee Krap. Put your hands together for the Y. Sawatdee Ka. Thank you very much. Thanks,
right.
Keith. It's been really fun.
This has been great. Thank you.
All righty. Well, yes, Sawadee Krap to you too, Diane and Keith. Thank you very much. And I think I elevated that high enough to show due respect. So
you're wise.
I figure, I'll give it a try. Why not? Anyway, thank you. I'm here for just a few more minutes. So, but yes, again, thank you so much, Diane and Keith, and audience. Thank you for joining us for this very excellent webinar. I love the merging of weather and culture and everything, and it just hit all the right buttons for me. So thank you. And audience, please be aware that all webinars are available to Weatherband members at amsweatherband.org. And yes, with that being said, a final goodbye, final Sawadee Krab to everyone, and we will see you in the next webinar. Take care, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.